or something like that. It's just a contaminated sample, which means it's not going to taste the way it's supposed to. So the idea of this class is to help you identify what those off flavors are, and we're going to do it blind, so you're going to have to figure it out kind of on your own. And then we'll tell you before we move to the next beer which one was the contaminated beer. We'll take a vote, do all that fun stuff, and by the end of class, hopefully there are 4 contaminants that you will be able to identify if they're in one of your beers. How does that sound? All right. Right on. Well, I would like to introduce to you Abby Spencer. She is a multi-time graduate, I think. I don't know how many times you graduated, but like 6-time graduate of beer school. So she's kind of, she's well known around these parts. And I asked her to come and teach this class because she's done this before, and she's a great source of knowledge for this kind of thing. So she's going to quickly tell you a little bit about the OG for those of you that don't know what that is, and then we're going to start drinking some nasty beer. So enjoy.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. So like Chad said, thanks, Chad. I'm Abby. So I'm the co-founder and president of this awesome organization I call the OG. I know I have a lot of familiar faces in here, so I know a lot of you already are very familiar with us. So pretty much the OG is just a women's beer club here in town. We started about 2... You know you're kind of famous for this. So hold on to both beers.
One and two. So just make sure you know which one is which. Okay. Don't worry, you have.
Yeah, just remember, like, right hand is whatever and left hand is whatever. So this is a challenge, I know, for everyone. We're drinking beer, having to remember numbers. I know it's a challenge. So anyway, long story short, I have presented beer school one other time for a summer school class. My organization brewed beer on a commercial level with a commercial brewery, and we released it to Cicero's, so we did a really fun beer school class about saisons. And we also just released an awesome beer with Charleville. You guys will get to taste that, I think, in the coming weeks, months, with Tate maybe. We'll let you know when we release that at Cicero's. Yeah, Chad's got a keg. He's just hoarding it. So you're supposed to have well, it's allotted to you. So Danny's got your keg. Don't worry. Okay, so we're going to do off flavors tonight. So this is what I do for my day job. I drink beer and serve gross beer to people for my day job. It's really awesome. So the number one thing before we really dive into these beers, I want to talk about why you would even want to try gross beer that's been spiked with a flavor. We call these flavors off flavors. So why would we want to know what these are? Any ideas? Yes? So you can complain. Absolutely. I look at it in a more positive light. I'd like to say to educate yourself so you may inform your bartender or brewery. Absolutely. Mostly as craft beer consumers, you have so many options, right? You have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beers to choose from these days. So you want to be able to know what you're drinking. You want to make sure it's quality. Craft is not cheap. I mean, if you compare your Bud Light and your standard IPA, it's almost double the cost. So you guys should be knowing if you're drinking high-quality beer. Educate yourselves, know what you're drinking, and hold your brewers and your bartenders and your GMs accountable. Make sure that they're cleaning their draft lines, they're brewing the beer appropriately, things like that. So today, I want to chat with you guys about the beers that you might be tasting some of these flavors in your beer, and you should not be too afraid of standing up and saying, yo, this is not quite right. There is a fine line of being the asshole in the room and being like, hey, head brewer, your beer sucks, and being like the good guy that's like, this is flavor, I don't know, do you taste it? That type of thing. And really just educating yourself. Why is this flavor in my beer? What's going on? So that's why I do this, to make sure you guys as consumers, and when you're going out and drinking beer, you're pumped and happy and excited about it, and you know what's going on with it. So, okay, super duper fast overview of beer making. Are you ready? All right. So really quick, 4 ingredients in beer, most beers anyway. Throw them out at me. Water, hops, malt, yeast. Very, very well done. Those are the 4 main ingredients in beer. Really quick overview of brewing. The overbrew for all of you that didn't know that was a word that I just made up. All right, so you've got malt. And you grind up the malt, you add a bunch of hot water. You let it sit for a little while, you pull the water off, you boil it, you throw in some hops, you take that off the hops, you put some yeast in it, you ferment it, it's beer. Everyone with me? With me? That was pretty concise, don't you think? All right, so now that you all know the ingredients of beer and the brewing process, these are the things that we're going to be chatting about tonight with your beer. Does everyone have beer, or am I, like, there's a rule about me getting beer, I think, so I don't think you have, once I get the beer, right? Okay, awesome. All right, well, I mean, I have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but Davis? I went to UC Davis, it's true. No, I still have things to talk about, but now that we went over the break, I see, this is what everyone looks like right now. And I'm like, I can see all of you look adorable with your 2 beers in your hand. You're all like, I don't know what to do with these. Yeah, don't drink all of them. I want you guys to look at them and think about them. Okay, well, I'll continue talking. Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So really quick, I do sensory stuff, so this is why we do off flavors. So my job in the daytime that I am surviving from on a day-to-day basis is sensory analysis type stuff. So I want to really quick talk about how I would love for you all to experience your beer this evening. So the first thing you want to do is, I know it's tempting to look at it, but try not to look at it and sniff it. 3 quick sniffs. Thank you. Thank you. So 3 quick sniffs. Right? If you inhale real deep and real long, it kind of exhausts those neurons. Your brain gets tired, your nose gets tired. So 3 quick sniffs when you smell a beer. After that, you want to look at the beer. You kind of want to hold it up to a light. Notice its color, its opacity, kind of the color of the foam, things like that. And then third and most importantly, we're going to taste the beer. So when you taste that beer, make sure you get some in your mouth, swish it all the way around on the tongue, and swallow. You ready? All right. So now you're going to tell me what you taste. Bubblegum. I like it. Bubblegum. Anyone else? Like Bazooka Joe? Apple? Okay. Like a green or red apple? Green. Okay. Circus peanuts. Butterscotch. Circus peanuts. I love it. Any hop characteristics? You taste citrus or earthy or piney or maybe a smidge of citrus? Little grassy. Awesome. How about the finish? Clean? Not clean? Does it linger? How long is it lasting? It lingers. So no lingers, lingers. I love it. A or B? You get both, right? Yes or no? Both. Duh. So this beer is fairly clean, right? Not too bad. So everyone just tasted beer number 1 with me, I assume, right? So, all right, let's all try beer number 2. So remember, we're smelling it first, and you can swirl it around to pop some of the CO2 bubbles. It helps it smell a little bit better. 3 quick sniffs, right? Awesome. Notice if there's any differences in the 2. To my eyes, my 2 beers look identical, so, okay. Color, opacity, all looks good. Sip. Differences. How's this one different? Bitter. Hops. Pine. More bitter? Doesn't have the sweeter banana. Awesome. Very nice. So the first off flavor we're talking about is called ester, E-S-T-E-R, ester. And esters, does anyone know what esters refer to when you talk about esters in a beer? Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, do you want me to explain esters first and then vote, or? Okay, awesome. Well, they have to, right, so, yeah, yeah, all right. So let's vote. Who thinks the off flavor is in beer number 1? Who thinks the off flavor, being the flavor I have spiked your beer with, is in beer number 2? All right, excellent. So now that's maybe like 2/3 and a third or so. So now I'm going to describe what esters are, and let's see if any of the votes change, right? So esters, fruity flavors developed by yeast in a beer. The most famous one is in a German Hefeweizen. Does anyone know what a German Hef is very, very famous for tasting like? Banana. Absolutely. Very famous ester. So that German Hefeweizen, banana, bubblegum, circus peanut is a very famous word. That's very impressive. You pulled that out. I love that word. But there's other yeasts out there that can also do these estery type of things. If you think of a Belgian triple or like a Belgian dark, let's talk about Belgian dark really quick. Does anyone know what a Belgian quad tastes like or a Belgian dark strong tastes like? So the big words we usually talk about: fig, raisin, prune. There's no figs, there's no raisins, and there's no prunes in Belgian darks. There's no bananas in Hefeweizens, no matter what people tell you, unless some brewery is going out there actually adding that stuff, which is ridiculous because it already tastes that way. So these are all esters. They're developed by the yeast. It's a very specific type of yeast. There's a Hefeweizen yeast that is banana esters, and then there's a Belgian yeast strain that creates these esters. Some of your Belgian lighter ones are going to be more like pear, a little green apple. If you've ever had like a Belgian triple, there's going to be some pear, green apple. Saisons sometimes can be a little fruity as well. So those are esters. So now that you all know what esters are, who thinks beer number 1 was the spiked beer? Yes, it was beer number 1. So the beer is dry hopped pills from Sedgwick Brewing out of Davis, California, actually. I was just in Davis a week and a half ago, and my class was actually in the brewery, which was kind of fun. I drank a lot of Sedgwick. I'm tired of Sedgwick. I'm like, no more. So the main thing about esters is it's very appropriate in a lot of styles. So in your Saisons, in your Hefeweizens and things like that, your Belgian beers, very appropriate. But outside of that, just depending on the style, it shouldn't be a very fruity beer, most likely. So also English yeasts are very fruity. Has anyone ever had Deschutes Obsidian Stout? And how about Deschutes, my favorite estery beer is Deschutes Black Butte Porter. So Black Butte Porter uses this very strong English yeast, and that English yeast is like strawberry and cherry and banana and orange. So when you get an opportunity next time, taste your Black Butte next to your Founders Porter or your whatever porter, next to an American porter. Very, very fun, because you'll taste your Deschutes, and there's all that chocolatey from the porter, but then you're like, oh. You taste it next to the American porter, and you're like, holy moly, because it's all fruity. It's like a little basket of fruit, so it's pretty awesome. All right, any questions? Yes? So we just tried a dry hop Pilsner. You did not know that. So in general, so the ester flavor tonight is the only flavor that is appropriate in styles in general. So the ester flavor that we just tried would be an off flavor in styles other than Hefeweizens, Belgian beers, and strong English yeast. But I mostly am just trying to get you jump started to tell differences between the two. Yes, but so for the next 3, no. For the next 3 off flavors, you do not need to know what beer it is. You don't need to know the style. You don't need to know anything. It's bad. Aren't you guys excited? It's going to be bad. Yeah. So it's a great question. So, question? So most of my esters are just like home, they're called like home remedy spikes. Everyone, that's Kathy. Kathy is one of the co-founders and the vice president of the OG. She has taken very good care of me as I've worked my way through my beer world. She is my spiking queen. So I could tell you her secrets, but then I might have to like cut your foot off or something. So, no, in all reality, we use a lot of extracts. So from the spice aisle, we use extracts. We're not doing it tonight, but I have a green apple off flavor. That's a bad flavor in a beer, and I just literally soaked green apples in vodka for a long time, and then I can add a tiny bit of vodka to a beer, and people can taste the off flavors. So, yes. Great question. So ester in particular is derived from yeast. So, and almost, I think 3 out of the 4 off flavors we're tasting tonight are yeast derived. So when I say that, for whatever reason, the yeast is going to put this flavor out there. Esters is a purposeful flavor in several yeast strains. So Hefeweizen yeast strains, many Belgian yeast strains, a handful of English yeast strains. It's purposeful. But a standard American yeast strain that's supposed to be super clean can omit these ester flavors if the yeast is what we call stressed. Why would yeast be stressed? Temperature, absolutely. It's too hot, and the yeast is like stressed to the max because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so hot. They all of a sudden just like start like vomiting up like banana and strawberry flavors left and right, and it's really intense. So if there's not enough yeast, if all of a sudden like its beer is so full of alcohol, and the alcohol starts attacking the yeast, that can also stress yeast as well. So yeah, great question. Each off flavor, I'll definitely let you know why you're getting it. So. Yeah, and that was what this question, that's what your question was about, yeah. Not directly. Absolutely. And so that was the question about if we know what beer we're tasting. So there's one other off flavor tonight we're going to taste, and I'll chat with you a little bit about that. Can be sometimes appropriate for a few beer styles, and we'll talk about it. I just took this really intensive like science beer class, and it was really, really impossibly ridiculously hard, which was great because I learned so much. But my point about that is like we talked about like yeast, like just like ale and lager yeast. Like let's say you're brewing a lager and your ale yeast just gets a little bit in there. It will take over your lager yeast and magically turn your beer into an ale. Like that is technically a wild yeast or an infection. Even though it's your good yeast over here for your porter, it's bad for your pilsner. Does everyone know the difference between ales and lagers? Everyone familiar? I see kind of some nods. Yeah. So ales, warmer fermentation. They often have more fruity, estery characteristics. Lagers are very clean, cold fermentation. They have to sit around for a long time during lagering. So, but they like even if it's a tasty, delicious beer, it might technically be an infection just because you like accidentally got a little of this beer yeast into this. So. Yes. Oh. Guest tap. Okay, I'm with you. Okay. Yeah. Right. Beer. So yeah, light struck. What color bottles are they usually? Green, white, or like clear glass or green glass? Absolutely. What's a famous brewery that has skunks? Heineken, absolutely. People love it. It tastes and smells like skunk. It's amazing. So now, according to my little world and my little head, and I mean, I'm just one person, I don't like it. I just don't like it. So in my mind, I don't really think it's the best way to go. But they have made billions and billions and billions of dollars on skunky beer. So 2, 1. All right, so everyone's got both beers, right? Let's start with beer number 1. So remember, we're going to smell it, swirl it around, 3 quick sniffs, right? Great. You're going to look at it a little bit, color, opacity, kind of. So anyone comment about how this one's a little different from last one? Cloudy. Yeah, absolutely. What'd you say? Rapid what? Okay. Okay. He was scared of it. I like it. Pretty foul, huh? All right. Yes, I sure did. Yep. He was out. Okay, let's try it out. What do you get? Honey? Pretty sweet. Rolling Rock that's sitting in the fridge too long. That's an excellent comment, sir. Little flat. I mean, some of these are going to be a tiny bit flat because Kathy's over there literally having to kind of mix them just a little bit. She's trying not to burst all your bubbles, but literally or figuratively. She's not trying to burst your bubbles at all. Okay. You think a little buttery? Okay. All right. Okay, other than the off flavor that you guys think you're tasting, do you taste any beer? No beer? Come on. No beer? I don't know. I taste a little beer, you guys. Come on. It's a little beer. All right, let's try the other one. So take a quick sniff of the second one. Take a little look at that one. Any major difference you see in the two? Yeah, a little less cloudy on mine. Yeah. All right, let's try it out. What do you think? Much better. I like it. Much better. Great descriptor. Cat piss. Okay, that's fascinating. Smells like cat piss, has a graham cracker flavor. It's like magic, guys. If I could put that in a bottle, I'd make millions, I bet. I love it. Put it on the label. That's right. Smells like cat piss. Tastes like graham cracker. All right, what else do you any hop characteristic? I see all of you like, not so much. Not a lot of hop. Anyone want to take a guess about what style of beer this is or should be or what we're going for? Okay. Hefeweizen. Okay. Let's take a quick vote. Who thinks the off flavor is in beer number 1? This one's a little stronger. Beer number 2? Well done, people. Yes. Beer number 1. Absolutely. Does anyone want to take a guess about what off flavor this is? No, not Diacetyl. So you hit the nail pretty much on the head with Rolling Rock. So it's called DMS. If you want the long, drawn-out version, dimethyl sulfide. So literally translates on your palate to cream corn or canned corn, cooked corn, things like that. So I literally just added some corn juice. Don't tell Kathy I told you, but I literally just added some corn juice to your beer. So yeah, why you wanted fried chicken. So, he brought up the fact that it tastes like a really old Rolling Rock. Anheuser-Busch, when they bought out Rolling Rock and they started brewing Rolling Rock at their facilities, they literally had to change their brewing processes to keep this off flavor in the beer. It is not an easy off flavor to keep in the beer because dimethyl sulfide, DMS, is what we call very volatile. Does anyone know what I'm saying when I say very volatile? Yeah, exactly. You can let it go very easily. Like, it's very easy to get rid of. Does anyone know how you can get rid of DMS from your beer? That is why you boil your wort. That is why you uncover your beer while it's boiling. So when you boil your beer, DMS is just steaming off left and right. So it's just like coming away, going away. If you cover that boil, it'll stay in there. Now, DMS, so we asked about where it comes from. DMS is created from a precursor, another annoying chemical name called SMM, and that compound is actually a natural occurring thing in barley. So SMM is just this naturally occurring thing in barley. When you heat it up, it turns into DMS. But then when you boil it, the DMS just goes away. So it's fascinating. This happens mostly in lightly kilned malts. So really, really pale malts. Pilsner malt is the most famous malt that has a very high value. So when we're talking about beers, we need to know the style. The only styles that this flavor is very mildly accepted in are these light lagers. Like a really light, like Munich Helles or Bavarian wheat beer or lager or something like that. You should not be picking up DMS in any of your ales or any of your darker lagers or anything like that. At that point, it is a mistake on the brewer. The brewer has made that mistake of not boiling their beer long enough, not boiling it strong enough, or covering their boil up. So, yeah. Sorry, this is O'Fallon. What is the name of their wheat? Westport, thank you. I'm like, what's the name of their wheat? Westport wheat. So, and I literally just dumped a bunch of corn juice into your beer for you. So, any other questions about DMS? Value time corn at that. That's the OG being frugal right there, people. So, let's see here. Fast cool. Also, okay, so DMS, like I said, it happens like when the SMM from the malt is heated. So both in the mash process, when you have the hot water with your grain, and then in the boil process, it comes off, but it's still being created in that hot liquid. So you also have to make sure to cool your beer down quickly. So if you have a beer, your boil just finished off, and now you're about to pitch your yeast, you need to get it from that 212 degrees at boiling point down to your 65 or 70 degrees where you're going to pitch your yeast, and you need to do it fast. Otherwise, without that boil, that DMS will continue to form in that warm liquid, and then you'll have trapped it in your beer, and you can't get it out. So. Right, so the question was the malting process can eliminate it? Absolutely. The darker malts do not carry the SSM precursor. Yeah, great point. So anything as dark as like a caramel malt no longer really has the SSM, therefore it doesn't really create the DMS that you're tasting. Sometimes with really, really strong levels of DMS, you're going to get cabbage, like cooked cabbage. I've had a few very cabbagey beers. Is anyone familiar with the Berliner Weiss style? Yeah, it's a really lovely style. In the old days, Berliner Weisses were no-boil beers. So they soured them, and then they never boiled them, and then they just served them to the people. Well, there's a few breweries out there trying to recreate this, which is adorable. I mean, I love history and all, but man, you have to focus in on the beer, right? You gotta like be bigger thinking than just like the amazing history of the world, and remember that in ancient times, beer really sucked. So if you want to make a good beer in modern times, you're going to have to boil your beer. So there's more than 3 Berliner Weiss off the top of my head I can think of I've had that they're experimenting with these no boils that taste like cabbage. Like when you smell it, it's like cabbage. Like I boiled a head of cabbage for like 3 hours. It's very foul. In dark beers, it can come across as tomato juice. So in your like darker beers. So the way you would get it in your darker beer is that your base malt had a high level of the DMS in it. So like if you used a Pilsner or a 2-row malt and you had a lot of DMS in that, it can transmit into the darker beer. So any other questions about DMS? Awesome. Excellent. No one wants to drink it, right? All right, so the beers aren't too offensive for you? You're not like completely overwhelmed with disgusting, are you? You what? This round might be a problem? I don't know. That's just a rumor that I've been told. I have not had an opportunity to take. You don't have draft Heineken, do you? You've had it before. Have you noticed any skunk to it? Yeah. Right. So it's pretty famous that bottled Heineken and kegged Heineken are two different beers, just completely. And they're allowing this to happen. They're doing it on purpose. I mean, people love Heineken. I mean, Heineken's a multi-billion-dollar company, but they have fallen in love with that flavor and whatnot. So swirl that guy around. Let's do the 3 quick sniffs, right? How's that bad boy look? Look okay? Yeah? Looks okay. Color? Anyone? Comments about the color? Pretty clear. Pretty. I like the word pretty. That's a lovely word for a beer. Pretty. All right, let's drink the pretty beer. What do you get? Banana. Pale ale. So what defines it as a pale ale? That's not a word for what you taste. What do you taste? Caramel, malt. So, I'm sorry? Balance between malt and hops, absolutely. It's a little sweet on the front, but enough bitterness on the back where it kind of balances it out. Little chalky aftertaste, okay. Kind of like it like, that kind of like, oh, yeah. It like yeah, it's a good way of saying it. Like it dries your mouth out a little bit, yeah. Makes you want more, absolutely. Anything tart or drying, you kind of want to go back in for a little bit more. I think I will try another sip just to double check that. All right, let's move on to beer number 2 really quick. So let's smell that guy. Movie theater popcorn. Yeah, like you know when you walk into a movie theater and like movie theater punches you in your face and you're like, what just happened? I went from outside to inside, and every movie theater does that to you. Yeah, why did I make you drink that? I didn't make you drink the whole thing. I saw you drink that. I saw you just like chug it. So that was on you, sir. All right, let's try it out. What you think? And I will comment that the appearance is pretty similar to the first one, right? Let's try it out. Butterscotch. I like how all of you are like, ugh, and I'm like, I love butterscotch. It's not that bad, you guys. And I love buttered popcorn too. Smells good. It's sweeter. Yeah. Flat. Yeah. Probably, yeah. All right, beer number 1 is the off flavor. Anyone? We're voting now. Beer number 1. And number 2. 100%. Yes. We really spiked these really well. Yeah, number 2. All right, movie theater buttered popcorn. You all know this one, right? Diacetyl. Absolutely. Diacetyl. Anyone know why you can get diacetyl in a beer? A lot of people know this flavor. It makes me so happy because let me tell you, if you get a diacetyl beer at your bar or at your brewery, you should be allowed to turn it back in. Like, I would like a different beer, please. This one is very buttery. So why does diacetyl happen? Yeah. Kathy does do that. Yeah. Let's just all bring Kathy. Thanks, Kathy. Gosh. Yeah. Kathy, the spike queen. All right, 2 huge reasons for diacetyl. Yeah? Absolutely. So the first one is yeast. Yeast naturally creates diacetyl. It's a very natural process. So yeast get in that wort and they eat up that sugar, and they're giving out alcohol, they're giving out CO2, they're giving out esters, phenols, they're giving out diacetyl. They're putting out all this crazy stuff. But as long as your yeast is healthy and not stressed, so we talked about the stress of yeast, right? If it's not stressed, it'll come back around and eat its own esters, phenols, and diacetyl back up. So if your yeast is stressed and creates these flavors and then gets exhausted because it's so stressed out, or gets exhausted because there's not enough of it, it'll fall out and leave the diacetyl left behind. So, but yeast love diacetyl. It brings it right back in and keeps it, and then you take the beer off the yeast and your diacetyl's gone. So it's really, really convenient. Number 2 reason for diacetyl flavored beer. Anyone? Bad lines. This is the number 1 reason you're most well, I used to say that, but with the craft beer movement, man, there's a lot of breweries out there making a lot of beer, and therefore a lot of beer is really good and a lot of beer is really bad. But so obviously, like, this is a huge flavor for you guys, that when you're at a brewery itself and you're tasting diacetyl, that's probably not their lines. That's probably their beer. If you're tasting it in multiple beers, it's probably their beer. Now, if you go to a bar and you taste like 3 or 4 different beers and they all kind of have some diacetyl in it and it's from several breweries, guess whose fault that probably is? The bar. So your beer lines that go from your keg to your tap can grow like these little microorganisms and bacteria that give out these buttery type flavors that are not as enjoyable. So those flavors, usually diacetyl flavors, are usually more soury, buttery. They're not that enjoyable. So yeah, so you should be challenging your bars and your Chads of the world to make sure that they have clean draft lines. So every time. And there's a lot of bars that do that, but in general, when you're swapping between lines, you should clean. When you're swapping between beers, you should probably clean them, but minimum every 14 days. So every 2 weeks, a beer line needs to be cleaned, just because of the natural like scratches and marks within that plastic tubing. Little microorganisms get caught up in the grooves, and they'll hang out, and they'll grow, and then they'll create this diacetyl-y, vinegary flavor. Ale. Yeah, and you guys called it. The Deschutes Pine to me is like very, very drying. Like every time I drink that, I'm like, I don't think Deschutes Pine is dry hopped. I don't think so. Yeah. Yes. Let's smell them both and decide which one we're gonna drink first together, right? Oh, okay. There you go. Okay. I don't know who poured mine, so I'm just gonna smell them with you. So let's smell the more. Let's talk about the more chocolatey one first. You guys get a chocolatey, nutty one at all? I have one that's like super chocolatey, super nutty. You got that? Is that number 2 for everyone? Number 2? Number 1? Number 1? We're totally gonna be lost and confused. Let's just taste whatever one you want. Let's see what we do. What do you get? Vinegar. Yeah, like it's like on my teeth. Anything else you get other than vinegar? New vinegar ale. Yeah. Guys, it's the new trend, vinegar blends. All right, I'm going to try the other one just to see. So this is the most subtle flavor we've done, which I like that we're doing a little subtle. It'll push you. It'll make you really think about this beer. So I can't really ask you 1 versus 2, but does everyone get that slight vinegary-ness on one of them? So number one, everyone, vinegar, number 1, vinegar. Yep, absolutely. So what we did here is we added a little bit of vinegar. There you go. Class is over. Dismissed. Bye. No. Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. You taste the vinegar. Like when I smelled both of them, I almost got the exact same smell. I agree with you 100%. The smell is not heavily affected, much more the taste. What is vinegar? What is like the compound that vinegar is? Does anyone know? Acetic acid, absolutely. Does anyone know what causes acetic acid in beer? Oxygen, absolutely. Specifically, Acetobacter is a bacteria. Excuse me. Is a bacteria. Is a bacteria that takes oxygen and makes it into vinegar. It actually uses oxygen. Acetobacter uses oxygen and alcohol together and makes vinegar. The main thing here, sanitation. Bacteria gets into your beer because you didn't sanitize your stuff well enough. So, sorry, I'm coughing. If I gargle with vinegar, right? So this can be naturally occurring in a few beers. What beers taste like vinegar? Absolutely, aged reds, specifically barrel-aged sours. So those beers that have been aged in like wood barrels, because the wood allows so much oxygen in and out. It allows for this Acetobacter to take hold and turn some of the beer into vinegar. So you get this very acetic flavor. So absolutely. Otherwise, no good. Thank you. Look at her. I'm sure it's spiked, but okay, are we moving on?
Yeah, that's all
okay. Good. We're moving on, people.
Is this on? Oh, yeah. So what do you guys think? Was this fun? Did you guys enjoy it? It's nice to do something a little bit different.
Do you feel like you're more educated about what you're drinking from now on?